Gemini, the sign of the quick mind, infinite curiosity, and communication. Often remembered for its lightness, versatility, and ability to adapt to any environment. But behind this dynamic personality lies a deep secret. An internal conflict. A silent duality that few people are able to see. Despite appearing light-hearted, sociable, and carefree, Gemini carries an invisible weight. A constant internal division between thoughts, emotions, and identities that never quiet down. Gemini talks, laughs, and interacts, but inside the mind never stops. It analyzes everything, feels everything, questions everything. Gemini's duality is not falseness, it is depth. It is the ability to see multiple truths at the same time. When hurt, Gemini does not confront immediately. Instead, it thinks, rethinks, and changes, not out of coldness but out of self-protection. Gemini is often described as complex, unpredictable, and full of contradictions. One moment curious and expressive, the next quiet and distant. For many, this dual personality seems confusing, even contradictory. But what if this duality is not a flaw? What if it is, in fact, Gemini's greatest strength? Behind the fast conversations, quick wit, and restless energy lies a mind that never stops observing. The Gemini mind is constantly processing ideas, emotions, and possibilities at the same time. This is not instability, it is awareness. Gemini sees the world through multiple lenses, understanding that reality is never one-dimensional. People often mistake Gemini's adaptability for inconsistency. But the truth runs deeper. Gemini does not change because it lacks identity. Gemini changes because it is always learning. Every experience adds a new layer, a new perspective, a new version of the self. Their dual personality reflects an internal dialogue between logic and emotion, reason and curiosity, expression and silence. There is a side of Gemini that speaks, connects, and explores the outside world. And there is another side that retreats inward, questioning everything, replaying conversations, and searching for meaning beneath the surface. These two sides are not in conflict, they are in conversation. Together, they create a personality that is flexible, intelligent, and deeply perceptive. As an air sign, Gemini is driven by ideas, communication, and mental movement. But air is also invisible. Much of what Gemini carries happens internally, unseen by others. Thoughts move faster than words, and emotions are often filtered through logic before being expressed. This is why Gemini may appear detached at times, not because it does not feel but because it feels too much to react impulsively. The deeper meaning behind Gemini's dual personality lies in balance. Gemini teaches us that it is possible to hold two truths at once. To be strong and sensitive, curious and cautious, social and introspective. Their duality is a reminder that humans are not meant to be singular, fixed, or simple. In this video, we will explore what Gemini's dual nature truly represents, why it exists, and how it shapes the way Gemini thinks, feels, communicates, and grows. Because once you understand the depth behind Gemini's dual personality, you realize it is not about contradiction. It is about evolution. Stay with me because what you are about to discover may completely change the way you see Gemini and yourself. Do you want to understand the 5 deepest meanings behind Gemini's duality and why it shapes their personality so strongly? Stay until the end because number 5 reveals what almost no one notices. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your energy strengthens this space and connects us even more to the universe of the zodiac. The duality between reason and emotion. At the core of Gemini's personality lies a constant dialogue between reason and emotion. This is one of the most defining aspects of the Gemini experience and the true source of their internal complexity. Gemini does not simply feel, they analyze what they feel. Every emotion passes through the mind before reaching the heart, creating a space where logic and sensitivity coexist. The Gemini mind is naturally curious and rational. It seeks explanations, patterns, and understanding. When emotions arise, Gemini instinctively asks why. Why does this feeling exist? Where did it come from? What does it mean? This analytical approach can make Gemini appear emotionally detached, but the reality is quite the opposite. Gemini feels deeply, sometimes more deeply than they allow themselves to show. Emotionally, Gemini experiences rapid shifts, not because their feelings are shallow, but because their mind moves faster than emotion itself. While others remain immersed in a single emotional state, Gemini explores multiple emotional perspectives in a short span of time. This creates the illusion of inconsistency when in truth, it is emotional intelligence in motion. This duality often generates inner tension. Reason urges Gemini to remain calm, objective, and adaptable. Emotion pulls them toward vulnerability, attachment, and sensitivity. Gemini lives between these two forces, constantly seeking balance. When reason dominates, Gemini may suppress feelings, choosing silence over expression. When emotion takes the lead, Gemini may feel overwhelmed, confused by the intensity of their own reactions. Over time, this internal conflict becomes a tool for growth. Gemini learns to use logic as a protective filter, not to deny emotion but to understand it. They develop the ability to pause, reflect, and respond rather than react impulsively. This is why Gemini often appears composed during emotional situations. The mind is working to stabilize what the heart is experiencing. However, this duality also carries a cost. When emotions are overanalyzed, they can lose their natural flow. Gemini may struggle to fully surrender to feelings, constantly trying to make sense of them instead of allowing them to exist. This can lead to emotional fatigue and inner restlessness. The deeper meaning of this duality is integration. Gemini's journey is not about choosing between reason and emotion, but about allowing both to coexist. When Gemini accepts that not everything needs immediate understanding, and not every emotion requires explanation, true balance emerges. In this harmony, Gemini transforms inner conflict into wisdom, turning duality into depth. The duality of adaptation. Adaptation is one of Gemini's most visible traits, and one of the most misunderstood. On the surface, Gemini appears to change easily. Opinions shift, interests evolve, and behaviors adjust depending on the environment. To many, this looks like instability. But beneath this adaptability lies a deeper internal duality, the tension between self-preservation and self-expression. Gemini adapts not because they lack authenticity, but because their mind is constantly absorbing new information. Every interaction, every environment, and every experience reshapes their understanding of the world. Gemini does not cling to rigid identities. Instead, they allow themselves to evolve, even when that evolution feels confusing or uncomfortable to others. This duality emerges between the need to belong and the need to remain free. Gemini craves connection, stimulation, and the exchange of ideas. At the same time, they resist being defined or confined by a single role. Adaptation becomes their way of navigating social and emotional spaces without sacrificing growth. They shift tone, language, and approach, not to deceive but to survive mentally and emotionally. However, this flexibility comes at a cost. When Gemini adapts too often, they may feel fragmented, as if pieces of themselves are scattered across different versions. One version exists in one environment, another in a different context. This can lead to subtle identity confusion, where Gemini wonders which version is the real one. The truth is that all versions are real. Gemini's adaptability reflects a layered identity, not a fractured one. Their personality is not linear, it is dynamic. Each adaptation is a response to understanding, not a rejection of self. Gemini learns through contrast, exposure, and constant movement between perspectives. Internally, Gemini feels a dual pull, the desire for consistency and the urge to evolve. Stability feels safe, but growth feels alive. This tension often manifests as restlessness, a sense that something new is always needed to remain mentally engaged. When adaptation is conscious, Gemini thrives. When it becomes reactive, it can lead to exhaustion. The deeper meaning behind Gemini's adaptive duality is resilience. Adaptation is not weakness, it is intelligence. It allows Gemini to navigate complexity without losing curiosity. The lesson is not to stop adapting, but to anchor transformation in self-awareness. When Gemini understands that change does not erase identity, adaptation becomes empowerment rather than confusion. In embracing this duality, Gemini learns that flexibility does not mean losing oneself. It means expanding the self. And in that expansion, Gemini finds growth, clarity, and emotional freedom. The duality of communication. Communication is Gemini's most recognizable trait, yet it is also one of the most complex. Gemini is known for speaking with ease, expressing ideas quickly, and navigating conversations effortlessly. But beneath this apparent openness exists a powerful duality, the contrast between what Gemini communicates outwardly and what they choose to keep within. On the surface, Gemini appears expressive and engaged. They talk, ask questions, share thoughts, and adapt their language to every situation. This outward communication is driven by curiosity and mental stimulation. Gemini uses conversation as a way to explore the world, gather information, and connect intellectually with others. Yet there is another layer to Gemini's communication, one that is far more guarded. While Gemini may share ideas freely, emotions are often filtered, edited, or delayed. They communicate what they understand, not always what they feel. This creates a dual channel. Words flow easily while feelings remain selectively hidden. This duality exists because Gemini's mind moves faster than emotional processing. Before expressing vulnerability, Gemini analyzes it. They ask whether the emotion makes sense, whether it is safe to share, and whether it will be understood. In this process, emotion may be postponed or disguised as humor, logic, or intellectual discussion. As a result, Gemini can appear emotionally distant while remaining verbally present. They may be in constant conversation, yet still feel misunderstood. This is not dishonesty, it is self-protection. Gemini uses language as a buffer between the heart and the outside world. There is also a duality between speaking and listening. Gemini listens attentively, often noticing details others overlook. But emotional responses may come later, after internal processing. This creates a silent dialogue that runs parallel to spoken words. Over time, this communicative duality shapes Gemini's relationships. When balanced, it allows Gemini to express ideas clearly while maintaining emotional boundaries. When unbalanced, it can lead to misunderstanding, where others assume Gemini is superficial or evasive, when in reality they are simply cautious. The deeper meaning of Gemini's communication duality is discernment. Gemini learns that not everything must be said immediately, and not every feeling needs explanation. For Gemini, true communication is not constant expression. It is timing, awareness, and intention. When this duality is integrated, communication becomes authentic rather than performative. Words align with feelings, silence gains meaning, and connection deepens. In this balance, Gemini transforms communication from a defense mechanism into a bridge, one that connects mind, heart, and truth. The duality of freedom. Freedom is not just a desire for Gemini, it is a necessity. Gemini's mind thrives in open spaces, both mentally and emotionally. The ability to explore ideas, perspectives, and possibilities without restriction is what keeps Gemini alive and engaged. Yet within this strong need for freedom exists a profound duality, the desire for independence and the longing for meaningful connection. Gemini seeks freedom to think, speak, and evolve without limitation. They resist rigid expectations, fixed roles, and environments that feel mentally confining. When Gemini feels restricted, their energy scatters, curiosity fades, and inner restlessness intensifies. Freedom allows Gemini to breathe, move, and remain mentally stimulated. At the same time, Gemini deeply values connection. They crave dialogue, shared experiences, and emotional exchange. While they need space, they also want to be understood. This creates internal tension, the fear that closeness may limit freedom, and the fear that too much freedom may lead to emotional emptiness. This duality often appears in relationships. Gemini may pull away when they feel controlled, misunderstood, or emotionally pressured. Yet when distance grows too large, they may feel unseen or disconnected. This push and pull is not indecision, it is Gemini's attempt to balance autonomy with intimacy. Internally, Gemini wrestles with defining what freedom truly means. Is it independence from people or independence from expectations? Is it movement or the ability to choose stillness? Over time, Gemini learns that freedom is not about avoiding commitment, but about choosing it consciously. As Gemini matures emotionally, they begin to understand that freedom does not disappear within connection. True freedom exists when Gemini feels mentally respected and emotionally safe. When space is honored and communication remains open, Gemini can engage fully without feeling trapped. When this balance is lost, Gemini may use freedom as a defense mechanism. They may detach, avoid depth, or chase constant novelty to escape vulnerability. This creates cycles of temporary stimulation followed by inner dissatisfaction. The deeper meaning behind Gemini's duality of freedom is self-trust. Gemini must learn to trust that connection does not require confinement, and that freedom does not require isolation. When this trust develops, emotional clarity emerges. In embracing this duality, Gemini transforms freedom from escape into choice. They discover that the most liberating experience is not running from attachment, but engaging with it while remaining true to themselves. In this balance, Gemini finds connection without loss of self, and stability without stagnation. The duality of identity. Identity is where Gemini's duality becomes most visible, and most misunderstood. Gemini is often labeled as two-faced, as if their shifting nature were a sign of dishonesty. In reality, Gemini's identity is not divided into opposites, but expanded into layers. Their duality reflects a personality that evolves continuously, shedding old versions and integrating new ones as awareness grows. At the core of Gemini's identity is transformation. Gemini does not cling to a fixed self-image. Instead, they adapt their identity as understanding deepens. What felt true yesterday may feel incomplete today. This does not mean Gemini was false before. It means they have learned something new. Their identity is shaped by curiosity, experience, and mental exploration. This creates an internal duality between continuity and change. One part of Gemini seeks coherence, a stable sense of self others can recognize. Another part thrives on reinvention, breaking away from outdated labels and expectations. Gemini lives between these forces, constantly asking, "Who am I now?" rather than "Who am I supposed to be?" Because of this, Gemini may feel fragmented at times. They can look back at past versions of themselves and feel disconnected, as if those identities belong to someone else. This can create confusion, especially when others expect consistency. Yet for Gemini, identity is not a single point, it is an ongoing process. Socially, this duality allows Gemini to relate to a wide range of people. They can mirror perspectives, understand different viewpoints, and adapt their expression without losing authenticity. Internally, however, this flexibility can lead to self-questioning. Gemini may wonder whether they are truly known, or if others only see fragments of who they are. The deeper meaning behind Gemini's identity duality is evolution through awareness. Gemini is here to explore the many expressions of the self, not to be confined by a single definition. Each phase of identity represents growth, not contradiction. When Gemini embraces this truth, self-acceptance replaces self-doubt. True integration occurs when Gemini stops searching for a final version of themselves. Identity becomes fluid rather than fixed. In this acceptance, Gemini finds freedom, not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from the pressure to remain consistent for others. By embracing the duality of identity, Gemini transforms confusion into clarity. They realize that being many things throughout a lifetime is not instability, it is depth. And through this understanding, Gemini learns that their true identity is not a single form, but the awareness that connects them all. Gemini's duality is not confusion, it is consciousness. It is not instability, it is evolution. Their restless mind and curious heart reveal someone who never stops growing. Because living between two ideas, two worlds, and multiple truths is the price paid by those who see beyond the obvious. And you, have you ever felt this duality in a Gemini, or within yourself? Share your experience in the comments. Your story may bring clarity to another restless mind. If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss upcoming videos, and share this video with someone who needs to better understand the depth of Gemini. Your engagement strengthens this space and helps this message reach other curious minds seeking understanding.